going on, Replo fam? We're getting closer and closer to Black Friday, Cyber Monday. The weather's getting a little chillier. I've got my hoodie on, and I've got Sonia Gracer from Retention Theory here to talk about, you guessed it, retention. Sonia, thank you so much for joining Design to Convert. This is season 3. I'm really excited to have you here. You and I have been working pretty closely together on some projects, and I'm really excited about this conversation because you know the plays that people need to be making ahead of Black Friday, Cyber Monday. So first of all, thank you so much for joining us. How you doing? How you living?
Hey, Sanjay, so great to be here. Thanks for having me. I'm doing great. And I'm just like 20 minutes north of where you are. So I'm feeling you on the weather.
Yeah.
It's just really nice. And it's the perfect time to talk about BFCM, right?
It's the perfect time. This is by the time, I don't know exactly when this is going to get released, but it's going to be pretty quick. We're recording this on October 3rd. So we're 3 days into, 3 days into Q4, 3 days into the holiday season of the sales season at least. So let's just dive right in. The clock is ticking. Brands are scrambling. Yes. Everybody's trying to make sure their offers are right. They're, cranking up ad spend. We're in an election year. Where do you start right here? Where do we start here?
Right. There's a lot of things to prepare ahead of Black Friday. Of course, the offer and what you want to put out there is what people typically spend the most time with thinking about. But there's so much else you need to do to make sure you're optimizing, right? And even if you're not planning to launch early, like many brands will do, and I want to talk about that later, but even if you don't, there are things you can do right now. And the first thing I would start with is your marketing list. Clean up your list. This is something that typically is forgotten, right? So making sure your deliverability is fine during BFCM is really important. And it starts with your list. So clean it up. Remove those spam traps. Remove those addresses that have like admin or sales or those
catch-all, right? I think those are called catch-all emails for those that
right. They're not monitored by one person. They're like team addresses. Like remove those. Remove people that are inactive, like people who haven't engaged with your emails in over 6 months. You are safe to let them go. They don't add any value, and just keeping on sending to them, it doesn't make any sense, right? Just costs you money and doesn't bring you anything. Clean up that list. So if you've done that, you're already way ahead of what other brands do.
So let's dig into that a little bit. And I really do want to touch more on deliverability. That's been a big topic this year, obviously with iOS 18 changes coming out. And then also all the stuff that Google and Yahoo have been doing on the recipient side to really block spam messages. But as far as cleaning up lists go, do you have a set of segments that are kind of non-negotiable segments that you set up for folks going into this period?
Yes, so I have those segments. So one is the spam segment, right? So profiles that never took any action that a real human would take. So they never do anything spam trap. Profiles that bounced, right? And some folks have those exclusion segments, but it's good to have suppression segments that you just set up, and then on a regular cadence, you just go in and suppress those folks. Then the unengaged folks that have not reacted to any sort of retargeting messaging, re-engagement campaigns, like those. Bless you. Those need to go as well.
Thank you for that.
So those are the top ones. So I do have a video that I posted on LinkedIn about exactly that topic. So if anyone wants to check that out, I go deeper there into it. But that really catches it. Make sure anything that's fake that could come from a spam trap or that really screams unengaged.
Got it. Okay, so those are super key. I know, and I've made this mistake in the past. When I was really early in my career, I would just blast the whole list as much as I could, and kind of nuke deliverability and nuke the quality of my list over time. What about the segments that you really want to prioritize sending to? So like, do you cut them up in a lot of different ways? Do you prioritize best customers differently, or you just kind of like everyone who is good, you're just bucketing them into one big bucket?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in general, but especially for BFCM, it's really important to provide different messaging to different customers, right? You're going to have that bucket of prospects that are on the fence. They have looked around, they haven't purchased. You need to speak to them in a different way than to your loyal customers who've been around in a while, because that's another challenge brands face during BFCM. Their existing customers may suddenly feel the brand feels cheaper because you blast out those discounts, and they have been around and they may be frustrated by that. So making sure you provide different messaging for them versus the people that are new to the brand can really help you retain some of those folks that otherwise may go look around somewhere else. And one key is really like for those existing folks, one key is to not just highlight the discount, but highlight the value, right? So making them see that your brand is not just cheaper during that period of time, but it's also better.
Sure.
So double down on UGC, double down on reviews, double down on product features, USPs, like make sure you're talking about that and you don't just talk discounts.
Sure.
And for the new folks, make sure you make it easy for them to buy into your brand and buy into what you do and what you sell by providing an experience that's really frictionless. So, for example, don't confuse them with 5 different offers. Don't throw everything at them. Give them one offer. If your brand is run in a way that you have similar products, provide comparisons, right? Provide a comparison chart, provide one offer, and then lead them to checkout. Make it really seamless, because as soon as the customer or the potential customer stops and starts thinking, that's when you lose them.
Got it. Okay. This offer segmentation piece is really, really interesting to me. Because I mean, it's the same thing. Like we spend so much time talking about acquisition, and I think everything you just outlined is also valid in acquisition for this period of time as well. What I want to really dig into right now is something you mentioned about the content inside of the email. So you're talking about like including the UGC, including the comparison charts. What's interesting to me is this is the same type of stuff you should have on the landing pages that you typically drive to. The question that I have here is, how do you balance between, or like, let me back up. What would be the ideal split between email with a really great offer going straight to checkout versus email with a really great offer going to a landing page or a product page, for example? Like, how do you think through that?
That is a great question. So the way I handle things are that when we talk prospects, always send them to a landing page. Sending prospects directly to checkout rarely really works out for conversion. So have that landing page. Make sure your email is a teaser, and I want to re-emphasize that. Your email is not the landing page. Your email is a teaser. You want that click to the landing page, but give them something that makes it interesting enough to read more and to know more and to learn more. So balance the content here. Once you have them on the landing page, make it a no-brainer, right? Give them everything. Give them the UGC. Give them the, I don't know, if you have a brand that, if you're in the supplement industry, which is where I'm mostly at, make sure you give those backup studies and customers to tell about their experience. Maybe you have some medical reports that are applicable. Anything you have that builds that trust, add it. Don't think it's the offer alone that's going to help you drive the conversion just because it's a really deep offer and just because it's BFCM. That is really, that's a way of thinking that's kind of, it's not going to add up.
Just because it's Black Friday, Cyber Monday doesn't mean you should stop doing like the evergreen stuff that, that does work, like the strategies that do work. Like, okay, that makes total sense.
Right. I mean, treat your customer like someone who wants to know things and who's not just jumping on an offer because something has a nice discount, right?
Sure. Well, I guess one of the things, and this might be getting a little philosophical here, but I've noticed more on the email side than on the acquisition side that we as operators tend to treat everybody like a number. Like we're looking at the open rates or maybe the click-through rates and the purchases off an email. And I want to talk about metrics here in a second, but I guess the point I'm trying to make is like I think it's important to remember at the end of the day, when you send stuff or when you run an ad or when you send people to a landing page, like there's a human being on the other end with a complex, like rich life, we would like to hope. But like really, truly, like, I mean, they've got, you never know when they're going to, see your email. What, are they in the pickup line, waiting to get their kids? Are they in the grocery store? Are they sitting at home? Like, so I think it's important to remember, like, these are real people on the other end. And again, like all the best practices that you can do the rest of the year, I think still apply here. I want to, because I mentioned it, I want to kind of back up a little bit and talk about some of the metrics that you track, especially in this like new like paradigm of deliverability. For me, on so we do a lot of cold email. So it's like, one to one at scale, but it's like B2B stuff, obviously, like we're a software company. But on the and in that, and to protect deliverability, I don't track open rates. I don't track click rates. I just look at positive replies and I guess like in a way conversions. Are you doing that on the brand side? Like when you're sending something through Klaviyo, like what are you doing in terms of what are you actually measuring still in this period of time?
Yeah, that's a great question. So open rates have been said to not be reliable anymore with all the changes that happened. However, that doesn't mean you're going to stop looking at them because they're still valuable for some indicators that you may want to look at. For example, maybe you do have subject lines that just do better overall in terms of their style, right? Maybe straightforward versus funny, right? You could test that out for your brand. So in that instance, the open rate would still send a valid message and be a valid KPI. Other than that, you want to look at click rates, right? You want to know how many people really click. So then when it comes to conversions, there are those two camps where people are like, oh, that email didn't convert. What I say is, well, your PDP or your lander didn't convert.
Yeah.
Right? Of course it matters. Did you do the right segmentation?
Yeah, the post-click matters.
Was the audience right for where you sent them? But then email marketing doesn't stop at the email.
Yeah.
Because that's not where they buy.
I'm clipping that. That's gonna be the bumper on this one. That's the bar right here.
So
that's awesome. Email marketing doesn't stop.
My
I
fellow
love
email
it.
marketers out there, don't think it's not your business how the PDP or the lander looks. It is your business. Because you want to make sure that that segment that you so carefully crafted and the message that you so carefully crafted in the email has the opportunity to actually convert by providing a really good experience on site.
Nice. Okay. And I'm sure. So for the context of the class, like you and I work together quite a bit, and we do work like help build the landing pages. We have. That's right. What a lot of our day-to-day looks like. For brands that are newer to kind of testing, on-site changes, like, what do you typically recommend them do? Like, what are some of the quick wins, especially as we're going into Black Friday, Cyber Monday? What would you ask them to prioritize as far as like the pages that you're driving traffic to?
Yeah, so I do not recommend making changes to your site now. To anyone, right? If you're going to Black Friday, don't start tinkering with your website.
Sure.
Make sure you take care of all the things like, load speed and all the stuff. But don't start changing your PDP because you realized the checkout experience isn't perfect. Rather, bring on a landing page that operates individually from your main pages on the site, where you can still test and where you can still tinker around, because it sits separately, and you have the option to make changes without risking any issues.
Yeah. Okay.
Especially if you're a small brand.
Yeah.
And you don't have an in-house dev, or maybe the brand founder is the one owning the website. Make sure you get this outsourced and separated. And I really mean that, because it's something that has such a high rate of return. Because conversion rate, like imagine you converting 20% higher. What would that mean for you, right? You can run those numbers.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's
more
not
money.
Right. It's not a huge goal.
Yeah.
You can do that with a couple of changes, right? And like folks like yourself, you have the experience understanding like what does a prospect need to see in which order for the best chance to convert. Do they need, like, based on the brand, like you literally doing nothing else than providing those experiences for customers.
Yeah.
Right. So that's my number one recommendation. If you want to up your game and up your conversion, invest in a landing page.
Yeah, and
it's not
this
too
is
late.
It's not too. That's not too late.
It's not too
I
late.
can't remember who I was talking to, but like they said, when you make a change to your website, like something core, like a PDP or like your homepage, for example, especially to people that have already been shopping with you, if you make a change now. Whenever you make that change, it's going to be a different experience. It's like going to your favorite store, and all of a sudden, the shirts are like in a totally different place than where the pants than where they used to be, and the pants are different. And now you're like trying to scramble to figure out where things are. So the core elements, like your homepage, your PDP, don't be tinkering right now. Now's not the time. But landing page is a great time. Obviously, shameless plug. You can do it in Replo. There are other tools out there. Do it in Replo. But also, I will plug you on this, because I think one of the things that you and your agency do really well is kind of guide that process of like, hey, this is the landing page that you need. So if you're listening and you're like, who do I talk to about making sure my email landing pages are dialed in? You're looking at her. Go talk to Svenja. We'll make sure that we have all your information in the show notes. Let's. I want to. This is something that I really wanted to talk to you about. I don't think we've actually had this conversation yet, but in the most intense sale period of the year, when people are being bombarded with offers and sale notifications and emails and SMS and all these sorts of things, like, how do you stand out in the noise? And this is a leading question, because my opinion is I think brands should be sending, once they have like the segments that they've kind of clearly defined and they've done all the cleanup, they can afford to send more emails, more SMS, tastefully. But I think they can afford to send more. So I'm curious to hear what your take is there.
Yeah, great question. So it's a really good time to talk about this right now, because it's first week of October, and depending on when you want to launch your offer, and that's another topic, it's a good time to scale email sends now. You don't want to go from sending once a week to sending 5 a week, like overnight. You don't want to do that, right? You want to scale slowly. You want to make sure you're kind of warming up the system. And then during the FCM, there is really a way to over message, because everyone sends a lot. You want to be top of mind. If you're afraid that you over message, then really hone into your segmentation to make sure you're relevant to the segments you send, and you have cleaned up your file, like we said, and you're not in danger of sending to folks that are gonna just mark your spam or gonna get upset, right? So back to sending frequency. So you want to make sure you are scaling your frequency ahead of time. And then you want to make sure what feels authentic to your brand. But other than that, like if it feels too much for you, it's probably just right. Because the fallacy that's kind of hunting people is that customers see everything that you put out there.
Yeah.
That's not happening, right? Like you may feel like, oh my gosh, we're sending like 5 times a week and it's really a lot of emails from us. Yeah, you are the one opening every one of them. People out there don't do that.
Yeah.
You're not them, they're not you.
That's exactly it.
Just like get that out of your mind. As I said, if you feel a little uncomfortable with the number of emails or SMS you send, you're probably just fine. And obviously watch unsubscribes, watch those numbers, and also make sure it's easy to unsubscribe, like from your email, right? Dial into making sure they don't have to look for it, because then it's easier to mark you as spam. Make sure you're compliant with all those things and just keep sending.
Just keep sending. Just keep sending.
Just keep sending and just, keep sending throughout BFCM.
On the unsubscribe piece, are you so like there are a couple different types of unsubscribes, right? You can just like unsubscribe globally. Maybe you can unsubscribe for a period of time. Do you segment, like do you give people the option on the unsubscribe page, like, hey, I don't want to be like, I don't want to get holiday notifications, or I don't want like, how do you think through that? What do you typically recommend there?
It's a great feature to have when you're a larger brand. Honestly, for a small list, I don't think it's necessary. As long as you do segment and you do consider preferences and behavior. If you have a larger list, let's say you have 500,000 people on your list, and out of those 300,000 are active, you may want to look into preferences, but don't forget, it's not just about collecting those preferences. You actually have to implement them in your segmentation plan. And if you don't have the bandwidth to do that, it's more disappointing to a customer providing a preference and then not getting what they actually opted for than not doing it at all.
Yeah. So that's actually a really great point. How often do you see that? How often do you, like, if you're auditing a new account, how often do people have preferences set up that they're not actually enforcing?
Yeah, it happens.
It does, yeah.
I see it once in a while. Most brands don't have those preferences. Some brands that are agency driven, they take care of that and they actually consider those segments correctly. And then sometimes they just collect it because they want to please the customer. And then they're like, well, now we don't really know what to do with it. Another mistake I see quite often, and that might be interesting to the viewers or listeners, don't make it too complicated. Some of those preference centers offer so many choices. Think about practicability. Don't ask them, do you want to get emails once a week, twice a week, every other week? Don't give them those options. Make it more generic. Make it like always, sometimes, offers only, right? And then you define what sometimes means.
Yeah. And tell them, right? So like you say, hey, sometimes it means I'll send you once a month instead of, standard,
like
maybe once a week. Right.
1 to 5 times or 1 to 6 times a month, right? Could be any of those. And then internally, really be clear on your segmentation. What's the priority for the segment, right? You have those shoppers that only want discounts. Don't bother them with other content. They really only want to buy when there's a discount. And that's valued, right? Respect that. Yeah. And then there's those customers that are like, you know what? I want education because this is a vertical I'm interested in and I want to know I want to learn more about it. Send me those blogs. Send me those podcast episodes or those YouTube videos you make. And then there's others that are like, you know what? I just don't want to hear too often from you. Send me anything, but don't send it too often.
Yeah.
So,
that's awesome. No, the thing that I'm kind of curious now, so we've talked a lot about campaigns. How do you adjust the strategy, or what like let's dive into your flows, like your automations. And I'd like to actually start at the very top, which is like your captures, like your email pop-ups. How are you adjusting that going into this period of time?
Yeah. So if you have a site-wide offer, I suggest to update everything, right? So add BFCM, duplicate your pop-up, update it for BFCM, and then flip the switch and then flip it back after BFCM. Make sure you match the offer at first entry for the customer. And then do the same with your abandonment flows, right? Put your offer in every single abandonment email or text. Make sure you resurface it. Make sure you update your welcome flows too, because your offer is going to be higher than your all year round email capture offer. So make sure you do that. And as mentioned, I just like to duplicate the flows. I don't like to tinker with them under time pressure. I just duplicate everything for BFCM, flip the switch, and then change it back and keep it for next year.
Yeah. Do you adjust, or let me frame it differently? If a really new brand, like let's say this is your first, maybe your second Black Friday, Cyber Monday period ever, and you have your abandoned cart flow, you've got some form of a welcome series. Are you spinning up new flows? Are you just like, you're like, hey, like let's just wait to experiment and we'll do this afterwards? Like how do you think through like net new flows if you're like really, really brand new?
Yeah, so obviously you want to have those flows kind of in place all year round, but if you don't have the entire life cycle covered just yet, make sure you cover all the abandonment flows, right? Those are the most important ones, because there are going to be a lot of carts that are going to be abandoned during those weeks. And then you don't need a new welcome flow. You don't need something that is different or specific to BFCM. Make sure the flow is optimized in general. Look at your trigger times. Make sure the timing is ideal, right? And then just use those very same flows and just pop in the BFCM offer. There's no need to overcomplicate this or to make new creative or whatnot. Just keep it simple and make sure you update the offer.
Got it. I'm actually kind of curious to know, like, what do you determine, or do you have like a kind of standard protocol for like optimal timing on those flows? Like send this immediately, send email to 4 hours later or 24 hours later. Like, how do you typically define those things?
Yeah, so for the welcome offer, obviously you want to send it right away. People sign up, they want their coupon code in the mail right away. When it comes to abandonment flows, it's good to kind of stack it, right? The further down the funnel, the sooner you deploy the email. So if it's a checkout started, you give it under an hour, maybe 25, 30 minutes. If it's added to cart, you give it 45 minutes. If it's browsed, you give it an hour.
Got it.
And make sure you stack it well, and also consider, if you have those flows in SMS as well, that you add like 5 minutes in between. So let's say they get the email, 5 minutes later they get the text. Very few people will really get both, but some will get a notification on their phone for the first one. They may kind of ignore it, and then they get a text 5 minutes later about the same thing. So there's a chance they head back to their cart after that.
I'm glad you brought this the type of trigger up, because I this is something I've historically seen missed when like looking at email sequences, is that, and I'm going to speak just on Klaviyo specifically. I don't know how true it is on like Omnisend or these other tools. I have no idea what happens on MailChimp these days. But it used to be, and I'm not sure if it still is, but it used to be that the default abandoned cart flow in Klaviyo, for example, was triggered when checkout starts, and not on like the actual, when you hit the add to cart and you leave. Those are actually two separate events. So what you've just outlined is like, make sure you actually track all of those things. Sometimes you have to go in and like actually turn that like tracking on, and make sure that like you actually are tracking not only like abandoned checkout, which is triggered by when they go to the checkout page, but also the abandoned cart. So they add to cart and they leave the site without going to the checkout. And then to your point, like the browse abandonment, they look at a product and then they actually step away.
Yeah,
that's a pretty common miss.
It's funny that you mentioned that because Klaviyo actually names their flows in kind of a fun way. So don't look at the names.
Yeah.
Look at the trigger,
Yeah.
right? Make sure you look at the trigger and make sure you have those 3 major triggers. Started checkout, added to cart, and then viewed product, right?
Yep.
Very different triggers with the need of setting up individual flows for those.
And then I guess another thing is like making sure you have the flow filters set up. So if someone does start checkout, they leave. I mean, or even like add to cart and then they leave. Like I have seen where people forget to add the flow filter that says, hey, if they've made a purchase since this started, don't send this email. Because that's like actually like a really common experience where you're like, I bought the thing. Why are you sending me the, oh, did you forget me kind of email too? So it's like this time, probably more than any time, very, very important to have this flow filter set up. Anything else that you would recommend as far as flow filters are concerned?
Yeah, another important filter is to make sure, especially during those weeks, people are going to be on your site a lot. They're going to add to cart a lot. Make sure you limit those flows so they don't receive them all the time, right? If you add to cart in the morning and then in the afternoon, you shouldn't get those flows twice. But limit it to, let's say, started checkout, you can only get it every 3 days, right? And then towards the end, when your offer comes to an end, you can kind of maybe remove that filter or bring it down to 1 day and then bring it back up for the rest of the year.
One of the things that you started to touch on was the kind of like your kind of deep expertise in supplements. And from my own experience, Black Friday, Cyber Monday isn't kind of the end of like the supplement kind of promotional period, and really extends to the new year, new me, depending on the type of supplement you have. But really, like most supplements kind of fit into that category. You can kind of keep pushing there. What adjustments do you make when you're working with supplement companies specifically as you go through, call it end of October, November, December?
Yeah, so typically a mistake I see very often is that brands stop talking to their customers after BFCM. You're like, oh, we send so much, we're going to like slow it down in December. But that's actually not recommended. It's recommended to keep on talking to them and to really hone into kind of riding that wave all the way to January. Because as you said, new year, new you in the supplement industry, it's really true for every single supplement vertical you can find, right? Whether it's workout supplements, whether it's really health related supplements, people do care. People do care to start the new year off. Health is a big goal. And making sure you're tracking when the best times for retargeting, what they are specifically for your brand, and not just for your brand, but for your individual SKUs, because they will be different based on serving size, based on recommended use. Make sure you kind of hone into that post-purchase. So updating that post-purchase sequence, for example, by breaking out your hero SKUs and making sure you know exactly what those repurchase times are and what those delays are. It gives you the opportunity to catch them when it's time to refill with a brand new message, because it's going to be by the end of December if we are thinking of like a monthly refill, and to already dive into, hey, New Year's coming up.
Yeah.
What are your goals?
Okay. And this is probably like a great segue into how you might layer subscriptions, maybe whether it's pre-purchase and also, and more critically, like the post-purchase. If someone makes a one-time purchase in October or November, let me back up. How do you structure like subscriptions? How do you layer like, pushing to a subscription offer during this period of time?
Yeah, it's very dependent on the brand and their audience. Some brands, they have a very loyal audience that actually likes subscriptions, and the entire business model is based mostly on subscriptions. Others have a different kind of audience. They may not like subscriptions. They may just want to purchase individually, and they do repeat purchase, but they don't go on a subscription. So first of all, you really need to understand your audience. There is no one size fits all. And personally, I feel pushing people towards a subscription when they have told you, hey, I just want to repurchase, doesn't make any sense, right? You need to understand your audience. And you do that by diving into past data. And then you're just going to try. You try to upsell them into a subscription by just telling them what the benefits are. And just the fact that you don't have to think about repurchasing often is not enough for people. They're like, well, I can, I will repurchase, right? Then you add on a discount. Okay, maybe some are like, you know what, that convinces me. Now I'm going to go on a subscription because I know I want to be on long term.
Right.
For others, it's the free shipping. Some people are like, I will never pay for shipping. I will never pay for shipping. Offer me something so I don't have to pay for shipping.
Yeah.
So you give them a free shipping discount in addition to the % off discount.
Yeah.
You really need to find out what works for your brand.
Got
you
it.
have to kind of try those different things.
Yeah. And to kind of like bring it home, I know we're kind of coming up on time. I want to get this question out in the open. I think from my own experience, there are a lot of companies that don't have an email agency, and they're also worried that, hey, if I bring this person on now, we're not going to be able to like capture the benefit. How would you break that frame? What would you tell the brand that's on the fence about like hiring an agency to kind of help during this period of time, especially with how much time pressure there is?
Yeah, no, that's a very valid point. And obviously time's limited and things sometimes take time to actually produce results, especially in retention. You need to give it a little time. However, my take on it is that anything you can optimize for BFCM, you're going to see benefits. And I think it's when you're looking into agencies, it's really important for you to discuss what the game plan is, right? To have them look at your account and what's in place and give you a realistic game plan to what's possible and to what should be priority. Don't just bring on an agency to send a couple more emails. That's not a goal. Bring on an agency to, I don't know, increase your repurchase rates, right? For one SKU even. Like be very specific. What's your main headache? What do you want to change? And let them tell you how they're planning to do it.
Okay. I think to really reinforce this, like a lot of times people hire agencies and they're like, okay, cool, I don't have to think about this anymore. And that's nice. But I think the best agency partnerships are the ones where you are working in lockstep. Like the brands that scale the hardest, that grow the fastest, they are as actively engaged in the work that's being done with their agency as much as they are like anything else that they're owning internally. So like really like understand that you are hiring an expert who is able to see the entire playing field, and you have someone like you're seeing, oh, I know what's working in X, Y, and Z verticals. I know that like these are the offers that are really converting. Like that's the knowledge that they should be tapping into. And then it's like a collaborative experience versus just being like, so I'm gonna take the wheel. I'm gonna go, I don't know, skiing or something. I've never been skiing in my life, but like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
All right. So really last thing to bring it home. If there's one piece of advice you would give to any brand that's listening to this, going into Black Friday, Cyber Monday, wanting to make sure that they're maximizing their email and SMS performance, what's that one piece of advice you're giving them?
Oh my gosh, this is a really hard question, Sanjay. One piece of advice, if there's one thing I'd tell people to do, wow, you got me here. There's no one thing. There is no one thing.
That's perfect. That is a good, that alone is good. It's,
if you had one thing to start with, really put that offer everywhere. If there's only one thing you can execute in the next couple of weeks, update your flows, update your pop-up, and make sure your offer is seen, because just because you know what the offer is People just need to see it over and over, and and keep focusing
Great.
on sharing the value you provide. Don't forget about that.
Incredible. Sonia, thank you so much for your time today. I'm really jazzed about this. The next one we're going to do in person. We don't live that far apart from each other. So the next one of these we will be in the same room. I think it'll be even more fun. Where can people find you? Where should people go if they want to work with you?
Yes, so the best way to find me is LinkedIn. So my handle is Sonia Gracer, my first and last name. And reach out to me there.
Perfect.
There's a lot of content there as well if you just want to poke around and see what I'm all about. But
Perfect. Well, we're going to make sure that all the people that need you find you as quickly as possible. Sonia, thank you so much for your time today. This has been fantastic.
Thank you for having me. It was so much fun.